Hi, I'm Kurt Mitchell. Welcome to the Pink Floyd video. We got a lot to cover, a lot to discuss. It's a rather large endeavor, the Pink Floyd anthology. It's some great guitar playing, awesome songs, covering decades, sold over 150 million copies, lots of personnel changes, and we're going to run the gamut. We're going to go from the top to the relative bottom. From then until now, and we're going to cover all the effects and talk about sound, and basically I'm going to play only two guitars on this whole thing though. I'm going to play me trusty Martin for the acoustic stuff, and I'm going to play my my 60s, I think it's a late 60s, I'm actually not sure, early 70s Stratocaster. And then I have another guitar that has a whammy bar on it because I bolted this one down so that it doesn't go out of tune, because these things are hard to make stay in tune. But I have a Floyd Rose guitar that when necessary we will use. And let me see what else I want to talk about. Tuning. I'm going to give you an A or open fifth string, okay? And you go ahead and tune your guitar or your A to my A, and stop the tape. Tune the rest of your guitar to your A, and then come back and make sure that we're in pitch again, and we'll be in tune the whole way through the tape. Or we're in A440, so if you tune to your tuner, you'll be in tune with me all the way through. Okay? Let's get on with it. I want to get to riff one. Oh, one other thing. We'll be talking about the history and of the band and all that stuff as we go along, and try to I'll give you a couple ways to set up your effects, because there's a lot of effects on the guitars through most of this stuff. Okay? Let's get to it, man. Riff number one. Riff 2, tone knob all the way down. Riff 3. On riff 4 here we have I have a phase 100 plugged in. There's a couple of ways you can get this sound. The little MXR phasers, they had two of them. They had a phase 100 and a phase 90. This one's more like a phase 100 or a Mutron biphase, a really old pedal, but that's how we're getting this sound. Okay, here's riff 4. On riff 5 here, we're going to introduce a slide, and in this particular band, and in the way that Gilmour uses it, it's not used like a blues slide or the traditional way that slides usually used, right? But he uses it to give you that feeling of floating away, you know. And so there's just a couple things I want that are good to remember when you're using a slide. You got to try to cover up as many strings as you're not playing, either by using the palm of your hand or your fingers, or the fingers behind the slide, so that you don't get a bunch of extraneous noise, especially with distortion. And you have to play it on the fret instead of in the fret, because the fret is where, if you press down the string, you're going to get your sound from anyways. So they're cool to mess around with. They're kind of hard to do well. But here's riff 5. Well, this next group of riffs is off of an album that is quite remarkable in its staying power at the top of charts. This album's been at the top, in the top 200 in the United States every year for 15 years, and it has the ability to transcend all that time and all the technology too that's come since. It was made in '73. I believe, and it sounds like it was made yesterday. It's an exceptional record. So here we go. Let's get to riff 6, okay?
Okay, on riff 8 here, and for the rest of most of the rest of this tape, we achieve a lead guitar sound that's unique. And it's not unique, but what it is it is a sound that Gilmour possesses and holds on to when he plays leads, and man, he can really play. But it enables him to play these big, airy, slow, nice melodic lines because the sound's so large. And basically what he's doing, here, let me hair into my face here. Basically what he's doing is he's adding some delay, right, and some reverb at the mix down, because they're very clean, right? This is not how you're going to be able to do it live, obviously. If you want to have, and you have a little rig, and we don't have millions of dollars to spend on our guitar rigs, so there's a few scenarios with your tablature that'll show you how to set up these types of sounds. Reverb usually doesn't sound very good plugged into the front of an amp, so if you have an amp with a loop in and loop out, you want to run the reverb between the preamp and the power amp section of the amplifier, okay? So, and as we keep rolling on the tape, I'll keep talking about this lead sound, okay? So let's get on with riff 8. On riff 12 here, we get to experience something that they used to use a lot. They used to overuse a lot, I thought, and you can't hardly find anymore, is a tremolo knob, right? Because what it did was it adjusted the volume up and down at whatever speed you set it at, and you could set it to the depth on good ones. Good tremolo had a depth knob too, but unless you're playing surf music, there wasn't a lot of use for them, right? So what happened is I have Marshalls, they don't have them. I think one model had a tremolo knob on it. And so I had to fake it by, if you follow along, here's what I did. I have my rig mic'd. I took the mic signal on the board, because you can do this sometimes if you have enough gear for your guitar too. I took the mic signal to the board, I sent it to a 2290 TC Electronics digital delay. I brought the digital delay back to the board. It has an auto panner on it, right? So when you hit a note, it goes like this, back and forth, right? And I didn't listen to the original track that I played, just to the 2290, and I turned off one side, right? And then put it up in the middle. And so now what you have is this side coming in and out fast, and no other side. And so that's how I got it. That's how big of a pain it was for me to get tremolo, and it's on a Fender amp, you know. So let's get on with it anyways, huh? Once again. Here on riff 13, I put two of the guitar parts together and figured them out how to play them at one time so that I wouldn't have to have one part without the other. So you have them in the tablature, it's written down so that you can learn them individually, and it's kind of strange to play when you play them together, but once you get it down, it's kind of cool. So here's riff 13. Now here on riff 14, I'm showing you another technique that they use in recording that you can't do live unless you have another guitar player, and it's called doubling. I always, when I was young and learning how to play the guitar off records, there was always these cool sounds that I could never figure out what was going on. What's happened is they played them twice in the same amount of space so that they're doubled. And on this riff, I've done that for you so that one track is on tape, and then I played on top of it exactly the same thing. This is what it sounds like. One more time. Now in riff 15, I'm going to pull something that looks kind of dumb probably, and I'm going to shut my reverb off in the middle of the riff because it's what happens on the record. But I don't have my reverbs plugged into my amplifiers because I have them running through my console. It's the cleanest way to do it. And I don't have a stomp, so consequently I don't have a foot switch to shut them off because they're not in the line, right? But what I would do if I was going to do it easy is have a foot switch and shut it off. But anyways, here we go. On riff 17 here, I'm holding my pick still. I'm finger picking, right? So I hold my pick and pluck with these two fingers, and you can get some really cool patterns, but you don't have to lose your pick and finger pick altogether. And it's kind of a cool technique. So check out riff 17. Now on riff 21 here, we're going to be playing our acoustic guitar, and I wanted to talk to you about picks because they're very important in the sound of an acoustic guitar when they're being strummed. Let me play for you a couple of picks, and I'll show you why I prefer the one I prefer. Okay, this is a heavy pick, big fat pick. Okay. And it has a round type of a sound with a harsh kind of attack. It's not very strummy, and for me, a good strummed acoustic guitar sound goes swing, right? So let's check out this one. This is a medium, right? Okay, that's getting closer, but here's a thin, which is what I prefer to use on a strummed acoustic guitar, and you get a lot of pick in it, and it sounds a lot like, well, check it out. And it never attacks too hard, and it never gets in your way, and this is the pick to use if you're going to strum. Okay, so let's move on.
time. Riff 27. Once again. One more time. Riff 30. Again.
34. Again. $38.
One more time. Again. Riff 43. Riff 44. Again. Once again.
Riff 48's using our neck pickup, okay? Again. Riff 49. Once again.
I'm using my my guitar with the whammy bar on it for this last riff, because certainly it has been recorded with one, but it's been recorded with one that is like this, right? And this thing, man, I just bolted mine. I took all the springs I could, man, and I drove them all the way to the all the way into the cavity so that they're pulling on it as hard as it can pull, and basically bolted it to the guitar, because before I got a Floyd Rose clamp, and this is all I had, when you push down on it, the strings stick here, they stick here. There's virtually nothing you can do to get this thing to play in tune when you use that bar. So you'll notice that guys without Rose clamps, and there is something to be said for not having one, because these sound different than guitars with Rose clamps. There's a lot of metal, right? And they don't dive bomb them, they just sort of rock them back and forth, you know? And but like I said, that one's bolted completely down, so there's no moving it at all. So we use this one. You can do anything with one of these because it's a clamp, right? So let's get on with our last riff, okay?
Riff 50.
Well, that's our tape. I had a good time making this one. It's always interesting. I was pretty young when this stuff was real popular, like Dark Side of the Moon, and I went to see the movie The Wall, and it really freaked me out. So I just never paid much attention to Mr. Gilmour, and his guitar playing is amazing. It's amazing. He's plays from inside. It's hard to get that, you know. So there's a track for you to play to right after this, and hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, I'm Kurt Mitchell. I'll see you later.